I think
Hi, good morning everyone. Welcome to today's licensing hearing for M&M Mini Market on 305 Halliwell Road. It's Monday the 22nd of March 2021 and it's just gone 10 a.m. In the morning. Sorry for the slight delay in starting today. I'm going to start off with introductions. I have two fellow colleagues that have joined me today. So I'm Councillor Mudassar Dean and I'm the chair for today's meeting. I'm joined by Councillor Newell and Councillor Flitcroft. From Legal Services we have Mrs Raby, just in case we need any legal advice during the hearing. From the licensing team we're represented by Mrs Pritchard, and from committee admin we have Mrs Ridge. We have Mr Liam Kelly from Trading Standards, and from JTI we have Mr Ian Howell. The licensee holder is also with us today, that is Mr Adami, and he's represented by his legal advisor Mrs Cartmel. So we'll move over to the second stage of the meeting, which is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations? I'll take that as a no. I'll just briefly go through the procedure just to make sure everybody's comfortable with what's going to happen over the rest of the meeting. We've all received a bundle from the licensing officers, and we'll go over to them first to find out if there's anything additional that they would like to add to what they've already sent us. Once that's been done, we'll have an opportunity, both councillors and other parties, all other parties will have an opportunity to ask questions of the licensing officer. Having done that, the other parties, i.e. Trading Standards and JTI, will have an opportunity to put their views forward, followed by questions and answers again by all parties. Then it's over to the license holder and their legal representation to put their case forward, and which will be followed by questions and answers. Once we've reached that stage, then all parties will get a brief opportunity to summarise, and then we will retire to make a decision on the best appropriate action or no action. Once we've decided, the licensee holder will be written to within the next 5 days, within the next 5 working days. Does everybody understand that? Is everybody comfortable with that procedure? Yeah, I'll take that as a yes. So we'll start off with the licensing team, and I think it's Mrs Pritchard that we have today. Mrs Pritchard?
Yes, Chair, I've nothing further to add to what you've already received. Thank you.
Right, that's fine. Thank you for that. Do we have any questions for Mrs Pritchard from the councillors?
No, thank you, Chair.
No, Chair.
Okay. Do we have any questions from for the officers from Trading Standards or JTI?
No, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have any questions for the licensing officer from the license holder or the legal representation?
no, thank you, Chair.
Right, okay, thank you for that. So we'll move on to other parties now, and first of all we'll go over to Mr Liam Kelly from Trading Standards.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd just like to point out there's an error in the application. The application states that the tobacco purchased in July was not in plain packaging and counterfeit. but the photograph and the statement from JTI confirmed that it is in plain packaging, although it is still counterfeit. So that's just an error in the application.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you. And just to summarise, yes, it's 50 grams of amber leaf that was sold on a test purchase that's clearly illegal. It was £7, which is just less than a third of the normal price, taken from the back room and counterfeit. And I'd just like to highlight that we've received intelligence subsequent to that test purchase on 3 separate occasions of illicit tobacco being sold. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'd just like to start off with a question myself before I open it up to others. After the test purchase took place, you said there were a number of other intelligence reports that you'd received. Is that right?
The intelligence reports that I have information on here in front of me now are all subsequent to that test purchase.
Right. Mr. Kelly, can I please ask why there wasn't any further action taken after the test purchase and after the intelligence that you'd received? As in the form of a raid, larger raid.
Right. I'm not sure. I'm not a manager in trading standards, so I'm not quite sure what the procedure is. I do know that several operations have taken place in recent months. I actually don't know if M&M Mini Market has been visited. I'm just unaware of that. I'm sorry, I can't actually answer that.
Right. Any other questions from councillors?
No, thank you, Chair.
No, thank you.
Any questions from the licensee holder or legal representation?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. So it's over to Mr. Howell now from JTI.
Good morning. I don't have anything to add to the statements we provided. The only point for clarification, you'll note in our representation we referenced an earlier test purchase that took place in 2018, and the question was whether the current ownership or members of staff were in place in 2018 that are in place now. I think the answer from reading the documentation is they are not, but that would be the only question I have or point to make.
Right, okay. Do we have any questions from councillors for Mr. Howell?
No, thank you, Chair.
No, thanks.
Any question from the licensee holder or legal representation?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, so it's over to the licensee holder and Mrs. Cartmel, his legal representation. So whilst you're putting your views forward, could you also please try to answer the question that Mr. Howell has posed, in that the staff, are there any staff that were there during the first test purchase that were there during the second one? Yeah. So it's over to you now.
What I'll do is, Chair, I will deal with that question straight away. I'm just asking the licence holder now, are there any staff that were there in 2020 that were there in 2018? Did you take any previous staff on? No. No, the staff were different. There were new staff taken on.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. Right, thank you, councillors. Just to confirm that my client took over this premises in 2020. It was the 1st of February 2020 that he took the tenancy over. And at that point, he was unaware that there were any problems until the review. There was the first review of this premises on the 28th of February 2020. So he took on the premises and then found out that the premises was subject to a review. So he was somewhat let down when he took over the purchase of the premises. The license was granted to him in August 2020. Now, you'll see from the papers, originally the license was granted to my client, Mr. Adamy, and he was the original DPS of the premises. Now, there was a period of time where he went to open another premises and he couldn't be the DPS at two different premises. So he employed a manager, that was Mr. Kawa Salah, and he was temporarily taken on as a manager and to act as the DPS of the premises. Once the premises, once there was an issue with the premises, the license, the DPS, was transferred back to my client's name. He was unaware that there were any issues whatsoever with Mr. Salah. He thought, he was a man of good character, and certainly he was unaware of any issues whilst he was at the premises. He was, as far as he was aware, he was a good manager, and I don't think there are any issues that have come to the attention of the licensing authority or the police whilst he was at the premises. The current review proceedings are brought about because of the test purchase that took place in August 2020. At that time, the licence holder had a member of staff working for him. In fact, the member of staff continued to work for him until my client found out there was an issue with him when he was served with the review papers. As soon as he found out there was an issue, then straight away he has sacked that member of staff, and he has taken on new staff to avoid any future problems. It was an isolated incident, as far as he's aware. I do take note, though, of the representations made by the authorities that there have been complaints since. The only thing I can say, really, is my client was unaware there was any issues at the premises. The licensing authority or the police or trading standards haven't been into the premises and told him that there's an issue. So the first sign of any problems was when the review papers were served, and at that point he took action straight away and dismissed the member of staff. I think those are my representations at this stage. I don't know if I can assist you further.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Cartmel. We have a question from Councillor Flitcroft.
Thank you, Chair. Mrs. Cartmel, you just said that the test purchase that's prompted this review hearing took place in August. According to the papers, it says 29th of July.
Oh,
and that's prior to Mr. Salah becoming the DPS.
Prior to Mr. Salah becoming the DPS. Prior to him becoming the DPS, he was originally the DPS of the premises. So, are you about? I think I've explained during the period that my client, Mr. Adamy, has always been the licence holder. He was originally the DPS, and then there was that period of time where Mr. Salah was added on, or it was transferred into his name. So it's always been in the ownership of my clients, albeit he did have a manager in place for a period of time, and that was more really because he couldn't be a DPS at 2 premises.
So can you just clarify for me when Mr. Salah became the DPS for the premises?
Right, just 1 second, Ma'am. I will. What? When did you become the DPS of the premises? Can you remember the date? Sorry, just translating. End of August.
Yeah, between the end of August, start of October.
Yeah, I think at the time of the test purchase, it was Mr. Salah that was on the licence of the DPS.
That was in July?
Yes, the 29th of July.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We also have a question from Councillor Newhall.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Cartmel, you talk about your client and the fact that he was unaware of issues with staff on the premises, issues either in the past or issues surrounding this particular incident. But would you agree with me that ultimately he is responsible, and that the fact that he was ignorant of these issues doesn't alter that fact that he is actually responsible for what happens on those premises and the actions of any member of staff? I mean, can you agree with us on that, you know, that is the situation with regarding responsibility?
Yes, Mum, I have to agree that he is, as a licence holder, he's ultimately responsible for the actions of his staff, and now he's been made aware of them. Certainly, he can take additional measures.
Yeah. Did he have any awareness at all about this tobacco that was on the premises? Because in the report it says that the tobacco was retrieved from another part of the shop. Have you any information about that, about where that tobacco was and the provenance of it?
None at all. My client can only surmise that if it was in the back room, that it was in the members of staff's bag or with their personal belongings. Certainly there was no tobacco stored at the premises, and there's never been any tobacco at the premises to the knowledge of my client.
So after this test purchase, did he not sort of inquire those questions that I've just asked you? Where was this tobacco and who brought it in and what container was it in? Did he not sort of instigate his own investigation to find out what had actually happened?
He spoke to the member of staff, and to be fair, the situation got quite heated between them, so nothing was really resolved. He was very, very angry that he's put this shop at risk. Bearing in mind the issues when he took over this premises, this is the last thing that he wanted. So I think my client, certainly, the discussion that took place wasn't a very calm conversation. He was very, angry that he'd been let down by this member of staff.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Newell. Do we have any questions from any other parties? Right, I'll take that as a no then. Okay, we'll move over to the summary stage now. Could we have a summary, please, from the licensing officer?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So you've heard from Trading Standards JTI, the licence holder, and his representative today, and in light of what you've heard, you just asked to consider whether any steps are necessary to promote the 4 licensing objectives, in particular the prevention of crime and disorder, and if necessary, take any of these steps outlined in the report at section 5. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, thank you, Mrs. Pritchard. Can we have a summary, please, from Trading Standards?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Selling counterfeit products in breach of the Trademarks Act is a serious offence in itself, carrying a maximum penalty of 10 years imprisonment. But selling smuggled tobacco is also a serious matter, and Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs point out that it's a trade that's dominated at a global level by organised criminals. So a small shop in Bolton selling illicit tobacco provides support to that illegal trade. HMRC also points out that apart from the loss of billions of pounds of revenue, there are other less quantifiable losses, such as additional costs to the health service, as well as to individuals' lives. It undermines public health. It makes it harder for smokers to give up. It makes it easier for children to start. Home Office guidance says certain criminal activities should always be treated particularly seriously, and this includes smuggled tobacco. The guidance also says the review procedure should be used to deter such criminal activities, and that revocation should be seriously considered even in the first instance. Regardless of the explanation that I've heard here today, it remains a fact that you could walk in off the street and buy cheap tobacco from these premises. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Kelly. So to Mr. Howell now from JTI to summarise.
Thank you. I would just like to ask the council to seriously consider revocation of the premises licence, as we believe this will send a very important message to other retailers in Bolton that the council will not take the sale of illicit tobacco as a light issue, and they will act seriously upon it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now it's over to the licensee holder, sorry, the licensee and Mrs. Cartman, legal representative, to summarise.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'd just like to start on the last point that's been made. You're asking to consider revocation of the licence, which is the ultimate sanction. And whilst I appreciate that the guidance states that revocation should be seriously considered, I would ask you to consider that this isn't a premises where the management or the ownership are involved in the sale of illicit tobacco. I think the guidance, when it refers to revocation, should be considered that it had in mind this particular circumstance. The circumstances for revocation are where there's a need to revoke the licence to stop the problems at this premises. To revoke this licence to send a message out to the rest of Bolton would be the wrong thing. Each case should be on a case-by-case basis, and you can use the review process as a deterrent, but as opposed to punishment, but a deterrent for this premises to deter future incidents at this premises, not as the general deterrent effect. The Licensing Act is problem-solving legislation, and it's looking at this individual premises and the steps that are necessary and appropriate to promote the licensing objectives for this premises. The licence holder, in this case, had no knowledge of any issues at this premises until he was notified by the council that the premises was under review. Had the licensing authority or trading standards or even JTI gone into the premises and spoken to the licence holder and told him that there was issues, this could have been avoided and it might not have been brought to review. As soon as the issues were notified to my client, he took immediate action and sacked the member of staff and there have been no issues since then. I would ask that if you feel that any action is required in this case, that you mark the incident with a short suspension of a week, I would suggest, would be something that would act as a marker, and it would focus the mind of the licence holder to ensure that he ensures that his staff don't create any issues in future. Chair, I think that's all I wish to say on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Cartmel. Right, okay, so now we'll move to the decision. So, like I said, you'll receive the decision in writing within the next 5 working days, and should you wish to appeal that, you'll have 21 days to do that at the Magistrates' Court. So thank you everyone for attending today, and we'll retire now to make a decision.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Could we also end the live transmission?